Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in bountiful Bakersfield, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael. And today we welcome back to the show one of our favorite witches, Jacki Smith. She's the president and CEO of Coventry Creations, which is one of the most well-known and respected intention candle makers in the world. And basically, they started the whole thing. And she's a businesswoman, entrepreneur, author, best-selling author, actually, of the Big Book of Candle Magic, Coventry Magic, and co-author of DIY Akashic Wisdom. She's also a podcaster, social media personality, visionary, and of course, a witch. Today, we have her on the show talking about a very cool thing they have created on Coventry Creations. It's called the Witches Union. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Next week, we have our good friend astrologers Caroline Marshall and Marnie Olson on to look at the remainder of the year. And of course, we've got the elections coming up and all kinds of big events. So tune in for that. We'll see what their thoughts are, see who's going to win. And then in August, Chris and I are taking a little break, and we'll be back in September with new shows in September. So have a great summer after next week. But please come in next week and join us. And so get all the information on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SXTH, all spelled out while you're there. If you can afford to, please buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. Helps us cover a bit of our cost, and we appreciate that. But the most important thing, go to YouTube, click like and subscribe. And thank you to all who have. Our subscribers are growing rapidly, and it makes us very happy to see that and all the wonderful comments we get. So please do. And I'll be on chat, so if you guys want to chat during the episode, I'll love to interact with you as well. So I don't want to take up any more time because we have so much to cover with Jacki, and we love having her on. So I'm going to kick it back to you, Krista. So take it away, Krista and Jacki.
Great. Thank you, Michael, and welcome, Jacki.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Michael. I love being on your show because it goes so fast. I forget I'm on a show. I listen later and go, oh, did I say that?
This is the first time in our new studio, I think, that you were the end of last year. I think you were our last show in Venice. I think that was it. So it's really nice to have you back. And I always love our conversations because they just go where they need to go, I feel. And I love the rapport. And we really love and respect you a lot for all that you do to promote magic and witchcraft in such a positive but real way, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. It's, 10 years ago when I was like, what is my big, hairy, audacious goal in life? It was 15 years ago when I said, I want to normalize the words magic and witch. I want to normalize them. So it's not like, oh, clutch my pearls, what's going on? And I feel that I've been part of that. The Coventry's been part of normalizing that. We didn't do it alone, for sure. But I'm very proud that we've been part of normalizing it. And then there's the repercussions of it being really uber normal. It's not so special anymore.
But the magic is. The magic is always special, and I am always still floored when it works in a way that you're not expecting, like the signs you get or the synchronicities. And that's the thing I do like about magic is there's this part that can always surprise you.
Yes, and I have to be very transparent. I'm in the middle of, girl, your magic isn't taking you where you think you want to go. So I've been doing a lot of work for myself with evolving and changing and dealing with this new life we have, post-COVID life. And it's not what I thought it was going to be. And so it's really pulled out as I do stuff for success or opening the road. And when you're in a place of evolution, I call it, I'm in the chrysalis, I'm in the gooey chrysalis. And so as I'm moving forward, I got to deal with so much inner work and inner gunk that it's like, yeah, the magic's working. It is. And I'm having to deal with a lot of stuff that I didn't want it. And so, but that's what makes it so real. It's not all, it's not Disney.
Yeah, and there, I think that I mean, I have that a little bit since, in some ways, moving to Bakersfield was incredibly supported magically, but then we were just hit really by a lot of stuff at once, and but I didn't think for one second that we weren't on the right path in terms of being here. But I know sometimes also when you move to a new area, the magic is different. And that I don't, like we noticed that we moved from coast to coast. We moved out to the West Coast years ago. We just noticed magic works differently. It has to do with, I think, the land and the sort of local deities, if you want to call it.
Whether loci.
Yeah. And so I hear what you're saying, because I also think that there's this ego part of us that feels like in magic we can just get what we want. And sometimes we can, but not always is that best for us at the time we want, or even thinking we want this thing and we don't know it's not best for us. We just don't see the big picture like maybe our higher self would. So I can understand that there are a little bit of dark nights of the soul, even with magic, I would say.
Well, we were talking earlier as we were warming up for the show about your blind spots. And so magic taps into your blind spots. So the things that you have been hiding from yourself, or you can't see, the things you're not aware of about yourself, magic brings it out. So sometimes it's your power, like, oh, I've been hiding my power from myself. This is awesome. And sometimes it's your limits, it's your fears, your codependency, the things you just been like, I'll deal with that later. Or not realizing you were saying I'll deal with it later. So, so magic pulls all of that up. It really, it stirs the pot, cauldron, as it were.
So I think that sort of goes towards this concept of the Witches Union in its own unique way, in that here we are, able to talk about our separate experiences in a very supportive way. And it seems like that was or is one of the purposes of you creating, through Coventry Creations, the Witches Union.
I started in 2015 as a marketing idea for our Witches Brew product line. And we used to call them our ladies. So the ladies needed to form a union. The sales had dipped, and I said, the ladies need to form a union and get out there, bring more. And then we just started laughing so hard about it. I went to my desk and I created the Witches Union logo, and on between Illustrator and Photoshop, and I was like, heck yeah. And so I just started playing with how fun it can be, because we take, we just talked about some of the seriousness of magic and then the ego of magic, but then it can also be very childlike. It can be very playful and fun, and allow us to remember that at the core, magic comes from your inner child, and it can be it's at its essence. I mean, for me, the word witch is a title, and it's like teacher, mom, witch. It's the things that I do, and just changing that definition for myself a long time ago, and how much I enjoy that prospect of it. So everyone who manifests a goal can be considered a witch. Anyone who has worked with the energy around them to change their circumstances is being a witch. And it's the most fun. I have Witches Union cards. So get your union card, and your local number 13, because we got to have it like that. But when I'm out and about and I'm speaking with different people, and they'll talk about the things that they've accomplished in their life, I'm like, you're a witch. And I'll pull out their Witches Union card. I said, you get your own Witches Union card. And how excited they are to get that.
That reminds me of the book I read years ago, Laurie Cabot's book, The Witch in Every Woman.
Yes.
And it's sort of like talking about more of the archetype of the witch, and how and in her case, she was talking about women, though it certainly can be men as well, but how we all have that at our, we can access it if we want. And even if you don't want to fully claim it, I think having access to all the different archetypes is really powerful in life, and trying them on, even if it's just for, a little while. I'm going to try on the warrior archetype, or, the healer archetype, and see what it can teach me.
I love the archetypes. I've been doing a deeper dive into them lately, learning how the archetypes are used in business, not just marketing, but in business development. And when you understand the archetype of your business, you can really go deep and become really very successful. And it just really clarifies your message in the marketing world, but also you can bring it further. So you bring up the archetypes, and I was just thinking, I think I personally want to make the witch one of the archetypes, because it is. I mean, there's so many from
Right.
from Jung, but the 12, I think that would be fun.
Well, it's interesting too. I know we've talked about it in the past, the actual archetype of the witch. I believe that it's starting to develop a more well-rounded energy. Though it has slipped a little into power publicly, a little too much for me. And I think we've talked about this in the past, that this has happened too. We talked about this with Christianity too, or was it, the Rosicrucians, a lot of things started out more as healing, and then they shifted to something else more archetypally. And I find that really, maybe it's just a learning curve, but I feel like, for instance, I like seeing just witches that look differently. Like, they don't necessarily have to fit a certain look, because they really haven't through time. Especially if you see some old photographs of sort of like Appalachian witches. And they just have on their farm clothes, and, they're doing their thing, right? And I think that there's room for everybody. I don't think there has to be, I'm not making a judgment, but that people, like all archetypes, they come in different personalities.
Well, because there's layers within each archetype too. And I think we have that, the body, mind, and spirit, that the physical, actually all the 4 elements, the physical, more of a physical witch, or more of a mental witch, or more of a, where somebody's working with more emotions, or very watery, or somebody who's working with more power, which is the fire. And I think that, and maybe there's just, rather than trying to fit the archetypes into what Jung has talked about, maybe we just need our own group of witch archetypes.
I actually think you're right. I've done a little bit. I took a little bit of a course. It was a lecture by someone that's really adept at Jung. And really, Jung did not completely integrate his feminine side. It was the women around him that really did the work for him. And this is documented. And so we were reading, I forget which one it was. There were 2 women that especially when he had his breakdown, one woman literally led him through it. So Jung's work is unfinished, I think, around the feminine. And not to say he didn't make any progress, but from what I could tell, a lot of it was projected literally onto women in his life. And he at least allowed that, but at some point, of course, we have to, bring it back and somehow integrate it. So I think you're onto something.
Well, even the main 12 archetypes, they're all majority masculine. I mean, except maybe the caregiver. The caregiver might be considered more feminine, but everything is very masculine.
Yeah, that's really true. But now let's get back a little to the Witches Union. So how is it set up if people do want to join, and what is the intention behind the way you have set it up?
Well, we have finally launched our Witches Union Patreon, and we're trying to find a good a foundation for it. Like, where can we do all these fun things that we want to do? And we, after digging through these things, Patreon is this amazing platform. So you could join at whatever level. We have free content, like we have memes that come out. We have every Tuesday we talk about a different Tool Tuesday, because I love alliteration. And then we have spell shares. So we can, in Patreon, we can create a community at different levels. So we have a free level, so you can just join and it's free and there's stuff there for you. And then what's so neat is in Patreon, we have different collections. Like we have an advanced magic collection, a book review collection, the tools, spell shares. We talk about different trends in witchcraft. So we get to really play with what we know, and we're growing and expanding as humans. So like what I'm working on this year is different than what I worked on last year. So and what I'm so excited about is this is a team. This isn't just me or just me and Patty. We have a new marketing director here, Dave. He goes by Dave Zilla. Actually he has a tarot deck coming out. So Dave and I have been in the magical world together for 30 years. So now we get to work together and do all these crazy things, which I'm adoring. But so he has a tarot deck, the tarot of the unknown. I almost said the unexplained. So the tarot of the unknown is the tarot deck that Fox Mulder would use, and so it's just really cool.
That's cool.
And he's an amazing artist too. So he's bringing his fresh perspective into what we're doing and his knowledge. And he's a more technical witch. Well, actually, he also has a book coming out at the end of the year about hex support, I think it's called. No, I don't think it's called hex support, but it's about using AI and technology and magic. So it's so cool. Yeah, so he just really knows his stuff. And we come to magic from different angles, where I'm more in psychological and practical and what's in my spice cupboard and let's go. And he is more learned and book a more technical of like how to use this and how to do this. So he really explores more occult stuff than I do. So it's been a fun blending of our knowledge. And soon in the next month or so, we're going to come out with a podcast that we can also do through Patreon as well as other places, of the Witches Union podcast, which of course I'm just going to announce now that I would like Krista to be a guest. And where we're really going to talk to real witches, whether you're published or you have a store or you're just doing your magic where you are.
Well, I would be honored. I would love that.
There's no just about that. You're doing your magic where you are.
Well, what I realized as a witch, I mean, this is an obvious thing, but one of our main deities is the Morgan, who is associated with divination. And it was only because I was reading this book about the science of magic. It's called Real Magic, and they talk about divination as magic. Now, that should be obvious to most people, but I never really thought it that way. I mean, I never thought that my magic is divination. That is the main thing I do. And yeah, it's in that book, Real Magic, which is a great book on the study of the science and some of the things that are going on with research. It's been around for a while, that book. So that's when because sometimes I felt like I was slacking off my magic at times. It's like, Krista, you're not doing enough at home, you know? And it's because I do a lot of it. And that is fits with my particularly, and Michael too, his deity that we see as one of our main goddesses. But I love this. You know, you're talking about this kind of blending of magical people, and I think that is a very Aquarian thing that can happen where because you're both very open to each other's different, it sounds like, abilities. And so I love that, because something can come out that would be a synthesis and not just this, something expected. So it's going to shape how magic is under this Pluto and Aquarius period, I think. So I think there's a slight delay sometimes in the show today.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're having all kinds of internet congestion.
Yeah, it does seem like it.
Sometimes you feel.
Yeah. We're definitely having that.
I was just giving a little nod to the gods of technology again.
Yeah. No, we're having something, because I can tell, like, by, you didn't quite get what I just said. And so Michael said it's very congested here, and we can only use Spectrum. So we're in Bakersfield, so they're a little less.
And I got a most of it.
So, but again, this one of the things I did want to ask you about the people involved that are joining the Witches Union. Have you noticed that it's a broad amount of people, different kinds of people?
It's only been out for, we've did a soft launch about 2 months ago, and the people that are joining are, it's a wide range. It's people who just want magic in their lives. They're not necessarily hardcore. This is what I've been doing for the past 20 years of my life. This is like they want to bring magic into their life rather than have to leave their life to be magical. And that's the biggest message, is that you can bring magic into your everyday life. With whatever you're doing, you don't have to stop your mundane life and then go over here to your ritual. You can make it part of it.
I love that.
And it's just wrote something down. He talked about divination, and I gotta add that in too.
Yeah, I'll find you even the exact sort of analysis of it, because it was sort of an angle that I hadn't thought about before, why it is, and it's put in there with. So I'll look it up and send it to you at some point. But our previous guest, Paul Weston, he talked about using magic in his local community in a really natural and integrative way. He shared that idea and how it actually worked, and how he was able to kind of just drop it in with sort of the regular people and have an effect. And so I think that's really important, because I think magic is part of our life and can be, and should be part of our life.
I think we're hungry for it as a society. We're hungry for a spiritual culture that allows us to express, allows us to fill our soul, allows us to experience all kinds of different spirituality. And I think there is a hunger out there to say, hey, I've been doing the same thing all the time. What else is there? What else can I do?
I think that's very true. Now, something I looked at the page of the Witches Union, and I really liked what you wrote on there, or whoever wrote it. You already talked about the title, which is a title, and then the second part, calling ourselves a witch, means that we take authority over our own energy and state of our reality. And it seems particularly important with so many sort of lies and things that go around so easily, that we take responsibility for ourselves and our reality and decide how to handle that. So I really like that.
I thank you, because I'm very proud of that statement, that I want it to be, when I talk about the Witches Union and what it is to be a witch, I wanted it to be empowering, power within versus power over, and accepting. It's a journey. You can decide one day that you're a witch. That doesn't mean you're a master witch. It doesn't mean you know everything. But being a witch is a journey within itself. And the more I learn, the less I know. I realize that the playing field is bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's so many different ways to be a witch, and that there's not one way to be a witch. You don't have to look like, I don't look like a witch generally when I'm out there in the world. Mm-hmm. And people get a little surprised. Oh, although I have enough tattoos now that people aren't as surprised as they used to be. So I don't think there's one way to do it.
No, and that's one of the things I was drawn into witchcraft, was the element of eclectic, that we all have access to magic equally. And yes, if you join a coven, there is a little bit of a hierarchy, but even that is a role that a person plays, and that, anyone could learn to be that role.
Mm-hmm.
So that drew me in. And of course, the idea of really embracing nature. There are other traditions that do that, mostly are indigenous, and yet there's a lot that really disdain nature. And I love that witchcraft embraces nature.
And okay, so there's the nature, which is you're out there in the nature, with the bugs and everything. And then there's the nature of the person. They embrace it. Hopefully, when people really start to find that magical power that they have, they'll see that not everyone is of the same nature. Meaning that Krista, you go in this direction and I go in this direction, and I have these issues and you have those issues. So embracing how we are naturally as beings.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And yes, and then there's certainly what I mean, I think, in my mind with nature is the idea that witches embrace working with the elements. Like even if you decide to be an urban style witch, you can work with the elements of the city, whatever that is. And then more importantly to me is the embracing of the body. And that is one of the biggest wounds for so many people, and religion often makes it worse. And right. I think witchcraft can offer, because it's okay to have a body. It's okay to be, it's okay to have like a sexual identity. And I know there are, like I said, some religions that are, but there are many that the mainstream that it's not. You want to get out of the body. You want to leave this incarnation, and that concept. And that always really has appealed to me about witchcraft.
There's of course, there's the feminist part of witchcraft, and because so many women were drawn to it, and there's a lot of men in witchcraft too, and I don't want to ignore them. I just want to kind of talk about the feminist piece right now, because there is an honoring of the feminine with the goddess energy and which deities you work with. I was just having a conversation yesterday. I can't believe it was just yesterday, because it became such a big conversation about the microaggressions of misogyny that are still out there, and they're going to flare up now that we have a new potential Democratic candidate for president. But they were flaring up last week before all this big switcheroo happened, and it's interesting how women finding their power and taking care of their body or celebrating their body is illicit and immoral still, or that making fun of it and having fun with this brings out monikers or titles that are illicit and immoral. So when we're having fun, like you're throwing a party and you're going to put a theme on it, it can be a man and a woman. The woman's title in that theme is usually something degrading. And we just went through a whole list of different party themes and stuff like that that have been okay for a long time, and now going, it's okay now, then it's not okay. So in the witch world, stepping into the goddess energy, or balancing the god and the goddess energy, the male and the female, human nature, that those, we can see those microaggressions. We can see how uncomfortable they are.
It's true. We still have a ways to go with really integrating the feminine and masculine. You could also add, and this is true, that men that have a strong feminine energy, and I mean of all sexual orientations, right, that they often have issues with, or society has issues with them, and they're made fun of, or laughed at, or they have to hide the fact that they're a football player that likes to quilt. And so the feminine, yes, in a way, women, I don't know, there's like two layers to me. There's this misogyny and sexism, and then there's this feminine energy that men and women have that also needs to find its way in equal status to the masculine energy and to balance it. And I mean, that's just my experience of it. But yeah, there is, and I think certainly there is a strong activist energy in the witchcraft movement, and for good reasons, I think. In that, bringing that up, I was remembering how Laurie Cabot really came out to fight to have Wicca recognized. She was one of the early people, and people like her and Z Budapest that fought the fortune-telling laws legally, that these were real fights. And I don't know that some of the younger people know about these women leaders that are still alive. Laurie Cabot's 91 now. And the work they did, that makes it so much easier to come out. And at least, I mean, not in all areas. There are parts of the world that it's still dangerous to be a witch.
Oh, yeah. And I was reading about that. And I love that you said that, because there's a lot of doors. When we were younger, and we're, with Laurie Cabot and Z Budapest and Starhawk and a few other names that just left my head. But the work that they did to normalize, to make this acceptable, to allowed me, when I opened my first store that I was going to do readings in, to have the fortune-telling laws in my town repealed, because the precedent was already set. The fight already happened. But then we struggled. I like talking about this with the new empowered generation coming up, is that, remember, we had a struggle just to find anything authentic, because we didn't have the internet. We had books
That's
that
true.
we would pass around. We had books that were not available. You couldn't just Google it. Where who's going to have this used book? So it was like this gem that you found. So anything real, any magic from any culture that was real, was like, we're just hungry for that, to learn something that's different than how we were brought up, to get that real magic. And the purpose of the Witches Union is to celebrate all the different types of witches we have, and the different type of magic we have. And we're starting with, we've got some articles out there. Like, we have this great article about creating a servitor, and I'm like, and Dave brought that to the table, and I'm like, what? I missed out on that one. That's great. So, and just we have an article of the different tools. We have something coming out on besoms in the next couple of weeks. Black salt. I mean, all these different things that we really wanted to get some real concrete information with some that's just available, that you can search it quickly. You can find it. And that's the goal of the Witches Union. So we can all start to share our knowledge like a union does, and then we have strength.
Do you think it's possible that it seems like it's still very new in terms of the relaunch, but do you think it's something that might lend itself naturally to organizing, if you did need to organize in any way? Like, say someone in a particular city was going through something, and they were part of the Witches Union, and they say, hey, I don't know how to handle this. Do you think that this could lend itself to that just naturally, since there's still areas that I think people that are openly witches really struggle with in terms of just their civil rights?
I love that. That's one of my big, hairy, audacious goals for it, is that we can be a clearinghouse of information where we can have, there's some great books out on this, and there's other articles on this, that we can be a clearinghouse of where you can find this information, or where you can find someone who can support you legally, otherwise. One of my goals for the next couple of years is that I would love it if we could sponsor Witches Union gatherings. I may not be there, Dave may not be there, but sponsor a Witches Union gathering in another city, where we can send you the swag that you need, and just everyone get together.
I love that. Yeah, you mentioned that too in the opening on the page, that most witches are solitary magical practitioners, which it actually seems like that has developed more since, like, say, the 90s. I'm trying to think of, like, in the 80s, where covens at least got more attention, and belonging to, are you a Gardnerian? Are you an Alexandrian? And it does seem like there are more and more people going their own way. Well,
I think there have always been, but you have the vocal group who says covens and we're here and we're there and we're out in public and this and that. But then there's a lot over the years. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And over the years, I meet people all over the country and people write me about the products and contact me for different ways. And I'm like, well, who's your local coven, or do you work with anybody? They're like, no, I've always been alone. It's something that I've naturally done, or I've always been drawn to, but I was never able to find anybody, or I don't want to work with other people. Because people are messy. We're all messy in our own way. And sometimes my journey is deep enough that I don't need a group to tell me how messy I am. But I think there's been a lot of solitaires out there. I mean, there's this, when I got into Wicca and when I was a baby witch, and it was always like, and then you find your coven, and it was one of the first steps in becoming a witch. And in Wicca specifically. But I think there's a ton of people over the years that have used the Coventry products, have brought witchy stuff, crystals, incense, herbs, blah, 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 blah. And they thought that since they were not in a coven, that they weren't a real witch. And then over time, it's like, yeah, you can be whatever you want. So I talk to more people who are not part of a coven than I do talk to people who are a coven.
Interesting. Yeah, you probably are right. And it's probably, especially if you look back to 30 years ago, it wasn't safe for a lot of people to come out and say they're a witch. And at least if you have a coven, you have a group to back you a little bit. Right. But you're right. I have found that I'll pick up something, a book or something, the person's solitary, but they've been doing it, like you said, 30 or 40 years, and they're just now deciding to write something about it because they want to. That idea of, owning that name, for me, I think it was a little bit, maybe a little challenging. And I finally got my own message about it because I have this Buddhist leaning, and I don't call myself a Buddhist, and I don't just call myself just a witch. I'm sort of like maybe a Buddhist leaning witch. I don't really have a name for myself. And I finally said, you know what? It's okay. That's just how I am. This is, and like I said, I got this really funny message when I was going through this sort of oh, what am I? And, but I think more people,
Krista.
I'm Krista. And I love magic. I mean, that's the thing that I know. I find that the concept of magic has probably always appealed to me, even as a little girl. The stories I loved the most, and nature I've always loved the most. And so sometimes early on who you are, but you just don't know how to describe it.
Exactly. And validating people who are not a part of a coven or just doing their own thing has the feedback that I've gotten over the past 15 years that 9 years that we've had the Witches Union, was that this one woman came up to me and she says, well, I was at at an entrepreneurial networking event, and I gave this woman her Witches Union card, which is the best fun, by the way. I think, and we're at the Michigan, the Treasury Department office in Michigan when we were at this event. So it was like I was in the middle of the feds and the cash, and I'm handing out Witches Union cards, and that's the most fun. But I saw her later, and she told me that how important that this became to her, because she realized she can be everything. She thought, well, I'm buttoned up in my suit and this is I'm business and I have to do this and behave this way. But I gave her permission to bring magic into her entrepreneurial life. And that doesn't mean I'm going to put crystals on my desk. What that means is that I'm going to look at the energy of the situation. I'm going to do a tarot reading on this person before I hire them. I'm going to check their astrology, and that's okay to do.
Right.
You don't have to wait till things blow up and go, oh, that's their astrology. I should have known better, because it clashes with mine. Or that I hired an Aquarius to be an accountant. So I hired the Capricorn to be my creative director. What the heck? So she was able to, she said, I started bringing these things into my business. And then she talked about how she brought in her HR world, the people that she employed, she brought more compassion, more spirit to it. Like not everyone's not sitting around meditating and oming, but like, who are you? What do you need from me? You know, what does your spirit need? And I was like, I'm like, just if I never do another thing again with the Witches Union, I did everything I was supposed to right there in that moment.
That's amazing. I love that story. And you know, honestly, the only other person I've come across magically that writes about that is Aleister Crowley. He's got a long quote about how magic is for everyone. It's for accountants, for golf players, for bankers. And I think that is a great example that you can use witch or be a witch and still maintain whatever life you have, that is no less than if I go out, you know, and maybe I do want to teach witchcraft because I'm a good teacher and I love it. But that idea, I think, that just different types of people, a plumber can be using witchcraft. And they're still a plumber. They don't have to suddenly be a witch who sometimes does plumbing.
Right. They can say, okay, how do I shift the energy of what's going on here so we can get this permit passed?
Yes.
So I was earlier this year, I was at a retreat with a bunch of entrepreneurs. And we had this a downtime where we're just all getting to know each other and not doing, just chatting. And I pulled out my tarot deck and I had everybody draw a card. And at first it was like, are you not going to tell me anything bad, are you? I go, I don't know. It's how you take it. It might feel good to me, but might feel bad to you. But anyway, said, no, I won't tell you when you're going to die. That's really what people mean. So we just went and I just like dug into like how that tarot card related to business. Like someone drew, what was a good one? Oh, two of cups with business. I'm like, oh, how does this relate to business? And it's like, well, it's partner, a new partner, or you're losing, you know, so maybe it's a big customer that partners with you and you're very influential in each other's lives. So I'm very fascinated with using tarot for business. Like what's happening this week, business? What do I need to look out for? What do I need to do? What's missing? And I'm playing with that a lot. I'm going to pull some of that into the Witches Union.
We personally do so many questions for business people. Michael literally has a regular person he reads blind for, and he have like 15 options. And Michael goes through them all. And he once told, he's very successful financially. And someone asked him why he was, and he goes, oh, it's Uncle Michael. It's his secret ingredient. It's totally tarot. That's the thing. It's all about context with the cards. And that's why it can be helpful to know the area that you're talking about. But you can certainly read things blind. There's no reason. But I would say business is equally asked for and utilized over the years that we've been doing it. Many people, and they're very successful people. I think this has been going on for a while. I've even heard of like very top executives that throw the I Ching, do the runes. Okay. They just don't talk about it because, well, it's their secret ingredient. They don't want to give away. And I could see that, you know, it's like, well, do I want to share this? And then sometimes it can be about their, you know, if it's a banker, are you going to perceive me differently? But I even early on, I heard that was divination for business to help it has been used for quite some time. Astrology, of course. There are people that they only work with the stock market. I'm one of my friends that she gets this newsletter from. That's all he does. And she's they're a professional couple, and she's really into healing and metaphysics and rescuing crows. But she was an engineer, and works for some secret JPL thing or government thing that we don't even know what he does, her husband. And she says she gets this newsletter all the time from this man, and she, you know, listens to him and works with her investments. And he's been doing it, I think, for a long, long time.
I do know several. So I know a handful of high-end, high-paid psychics, astrologers, tarot readers. and they're very quiet about it. They're not like the John Edwards of this world. They have no interest. They'd lose all their clients if they were that.
Mm-hmm.
They get big money. They work with businesses and investors and really high-end folks, government leaders, things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And so, not that they give me their list of clients and not that I would ever repeat it, but I was just like, these are people that are getting $5,000 a reading and in all around the world. And I'm like, I went in the wrong direction.
No.
But no, I love what I do, and I wouldn't trade it, because I just love that. I love that Coventry and the Witches Union, one of our superpowers is making people comfortable with their own magical self, waking up their own inner magic, the ability to say, I can change my life and do something different. I'm very, very proud of that. It really, that's what gets me up in the morning, is I help people wake up their magic.
And I think that from what my experience of you, you truly are very supportive, and you have a healthy ego, because you have to have an ego. There's nothing wrong with ego. It just has to be a healthy ego. And I think that you can also, and have been initially through your candles, approachable. Which and again, that's just something that everyone's a little different, but there's certainly certain groups or certain forms of magic I feel are very particular and very niche oriented, and they aren't that approachable. Maybe that's their thing. They don't want to be approachable. So
they want to be special. They want to be they want to be elite, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's, I don't feel elite. And it's okay.
Well, I think, though, the other thing that you probably really take for granted, and which I learned from getting your book, The Big Book of Candle Magic, is your experience doing candles is so unique. And some of the things that you write about really were really helpful. I mean, it was
cool.
And that's just something that takes time, but also means you have had to integrate the experiences and think about it and gain the wisdom. So you took the time to do that. And I think that does make you, in my mind, probably even more than the fact that you created the candles, is that you also used them over the years, and that you are willing to share what you've learned. Because again, not everybody will, for a variety of reasons, out of fear or whatever it is. And I think that you have a lot to, probably more than you realize, to offer. And of all the people I've met that you do, I've gotten the most from the little bit I've learned from you that I could apply right away. And I felt it was helpful.
I think one of the things that I like about my brand of candle magic is I'm more concerned about what energy shift is happening and less concerned about what the candle's doing. Sometimes the candle goes out. You know how, like, in candle magic, if your candle goes out and you can't relight it, you have to do a big cleansing, or this is not the thing for you. Sometimes when the candle goes out, I go get a new candle, because there's the real of the fact that I might have messed it up, or I dig out the wick because it's going to work, darn it. I'm less concerned about the wax drippings than I am about what the drippings of my life are. And that's one of the things I think is more important. But it's also fun to then read the candle wax drippings. It's also fun to look at if the flame is doing something super weird. If the flame's not doing anything super weird and it's just doing what flames do, then leave it alone. But if the flame is doing something super weird, like I lit a candle the other day. So I have two candles, kind of like, we make them the same way, we use the same wick and everything. And one of the candle, its flame was like this big.
Wow.
And I trimmed the wick. They were both trimmed the same. Like, this flame was here and the other flame was here. And I'm like, okay, that's a message. That's a message. So, so then I trim the wick down and I do and then you do a few things. If the candle's going out, I cleanse myself and then dig the wick out and light it again, because I don't like throwing candles away.
Yeah, I have to admit also, after I read your book, and after I met you, I made sure to really burn my candles down, because I think I was a little impatient. And not to say my magic didn't work at all, but I would say it still works somewhat. But I think that sort of changed my ideas about candles and, you know, really fully embracing that magic, not just sort of somewhat, this is a, you know, on the side happening.
Yeah. And then you have to look for it. I mean, whether we're talking about the Witches Union or candles or anything like that, or you're putting crystals in a grid, or, you know, you're making a lovely tea for yourself, you have to look for the magic to happen, because it's gonna bring a difference. It's gonna, like, sometimes it feels like a dissonant chord, because you're shifting your energy. You're used to going home, sitting on your couch, binge watching something. Right now it's The Good Wife, but binge watching something and doing the same old, same old, same old. And then when you cast a spell and you're doing your magic or you're doing your witchery, there's something that happens that throws you out of that groove that you were in. Otherwise, you just do the same old, nothing else is going to change. And it might feel very, very uncomfortable. I just wrote an article on this month about, in magic and success, sometimes whatever you're doing, you got to draw back the bow. So you got to retreat a little, so then you can fly farther. And it can be uncomfortable. And then, woohoo.
So is that how you start to notice the effects of your particular candle intention? And do you also look for anything external? Is it a combination of your internal and external reality that helps you to understand what happened with your candle and how it's working or how it's not working? I think we got a little...
Yeah. And it can be external. It can be, we got a little weird for a second.
Yeah. So I was saying, yeah, it was the internet connection was a little unstable, it said. And so how you, do you look at sort of the combination of your internal response with the external to analyze the spell in terms of how it's working or not working?
Agreed. And that's what I do is I'll say, what's shifting in me? Do I feel different? Am I thinking differently? Am I hearing things? It's a big thing. Is, am I hearing different things? Like, is my primal brain working to bring my attention to something else? And then, and the external world is what's, sometimes it's like, oh, my car's not starting, but you know, if I'm just things happening differently, I walk in a different door, or just watch the changes that are happening. Watch it. It might be struggle. It might be an ease that happens.
True. Something could open just as much as something could be an obstacle. It could go either way. There could be a whole book on car magic. I think there should be. Working with cars and magic.
Car magic. I like that.
Well, it's such a big part of our life is for a lot of us, cars. You know, it's our horse.
I just got a car that's new to me, and I got a great deal on it. And when I sat in reel on this, when I sat in it, I could tell that there's a lot of arguments that happened in that car. And so then I was able to do some cleansing work. I got the stink out of it, and not with candles, though. Candles and cars don't do well together. But I also did a big blessing. I took it to the railroad tracks and did a blessing to the gods of iron and things like that.
Oh, I like that.
On the railroad track, next to the railroad track.
That would be quite unusual, I would say. You know, the more I think about it, yes, it's kind of a flippant thing I put out, but one could really do something about, because we have had to use magic on our car, and we had to actually go outside of ourselves because ours wasn't working at one point with our Trans Am, and we literally, I think we got hit the bumper like 20 times in 1 year. It was insane. And Michael would start painting the fender because he got so tired of it. And just as he finished painting it, somebody would go up and hit it again. So I don't think we ever totally knew why, but we did finally go to someone that helped us because we thought, okay, this isn't working, and what we're doing isn't working. We need outside help. And it did help. It did help. So yes, I think that would be at least a great topic for your Witches Union is magic and cars.
I wrote it down. I have so many little notes. You'll see me like look down right. I'm like, oh, I got it right. We've got an article coming up on Genus Loci, which is the spirit of the land.
Yes.
Of just so the basics of how to approach a spirit of the land, because there's so many spirits, there's not any one way to do it, but to pay attention to understand and some ways that they can potentially show up.
I love that. I can't wait to read that one.
Yeah. Sometimes when they show up, they're not happy.
Yes.
And so you can help bring them back to balance. And that's working with nature.
Oh, absolutely. I think the person that brought the attention to me around that more significantly, known about that through the Buddhists, but I kind of think that I thought the lamas had to do it, kind of. And it was Jason Miller. He talks about it in his book on financial sorcery. And as one of the remedies has to do with making offerings to it got my attention. I was like, that's such a cool idea too. It's something to me that it's interesting. And so I can't wait to read what you folks write about it, because I'm still really learning about that idea. And now that we're in a new area, so I'll have to make friends with the new ones.
We've got some cool articles coming up too. Yeah.
So if people want to go, is it best to go to your Coventry Creations website if they want to go and learn more about the Witches Union and join for free or one of the memberships?
You can just go to Witches. You can start with witchesunion.com, and then there's also in Patreon, you can search Witches Union Patreon. And there's, we have the Witches Union Facebook group you can join, and then and the Coventry social media, we have links to the Patreon as well.
And by the way, I love all the patches that are part of one of the membership tiers that it looks like you can buy them separately. They are really nice though. You folks did a beautiful job on them.
Thank you. I love the patches. I have more ideas coming up for next year for patches, but we have 13 patches, the Witches Union, or 12 patches. I just lost count. Anyway, but it's the different types of magic that we would do. I mean, there's money magic, there's love magic, protection magic, meditation, divine guidance, all of these different things that witches use in their journey. And I've got some coming up, like I'm going to do the kitchen witch one and the garden witch one, and
oh, I love that.
Some of the different archetypes. Maybe I'll just focus on the archetypes next time.
Yes, they all look great too. They're nicely made. So congratulations on that. I think it's, and people love the patches for so many reasons. So I think it's going to be speaking to many people, and I think you're going to have a lot of success with the Witches Union.
Thank you. And I'm working on making stickers too, because everybody loves a good sticker.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I use stickers all the time on my cards. So I will certainly look forward to that as well. So we're running down to the last 2 minutes. Anything briefly you wanted to add before we close the show?
I'm just having so much fun talking to you, Krista, and talking to you, Michael, and I love being on this show. Coventry has got CoventryCreations.com if you want to take a look at the different candles that I've been making for over 30 years. And just take a peek at the Witches Union Patreon. There's a free level, and just see what else we got going on there. And it's so pretty. The Witches Union Patreon is just pretty. It
is. I joined the free one yesterday. So I already was reading one of the articles.
Oh, good.
So I think it's great. I think it has a great vibe to it, and I think it's a timely thing in terms of trying to come together with some similar goals in life. And I think it's a mix of real information and playfulness, which we all, I don't know, we do need that playful spirit right now, I think. So thank you, Jacki, for coming on the show.
Right. That's the goal.
It is the goal. And I really appreciate you coming back, and good luck with all that, but I'll be in touch. And thank you all for listening in. Join us next time as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a magical week.